Hello everybody, how are you tonight? Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator. Have been with Stampin' Up for about 10 years, but making cards for many more years, and my goal is to simply spread joy one card at a time. Appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I know everybody's really busy, but it means a lot to me that you are spending some of your time watching this. If you like what you see, please give me a thumbs up. Feel free to share it. The more people that see it, the more I can help spread that joy amongst other card crafters. Hope everybody's had a good week. We had a little bit of snow, but more wind and stuff this past week. The kind of thing where I'm not even going to bother shoveling it. And then we ended up, just because of the drifting, we ended up having to shovel a little bit in our driveway, but not a big deal. And I guess the other highlight of the weekend was having Cece stay overnight with us. She is 16 months old and is walking, and if she can reach it, she's got it. So before she came over, if I didn't want it broken, I had to pick some stuff up, cover up outlets, because she's really fascinated with outlets right now. And just had a blast with her. She knows how to make a good mess. Hey, April is not so great yet at the picking up part, so lots of deconstruction, demolition of stuff, and we'll work on the picking up stuff. That'll happen. So it was fun to spend some time with her too. And other than that, not a whole lot to report here. The card I'm sharing with you tonight, it's actually a new set of stamps and dies for me that I am sharing. It came out of the January to April mini catalog. I've actually had them for a while, but just haven't started using them a whole lot. And then I had a friend do a video making some cards with this, and so one of the folds she did I absolutely fell in love with, and so I'm going to be sharing that one with you tonight. Hi Julie, thanks for watching. I'm going to be sharing that one with you because it's just, it actually was a blast from my past almost in the style of this fold, because I think I've been destined to work with cards and stationery and stuff my whole life. I used to pour over, if you remember the current catalog, and they always had all sorts of just fun stationery, a lot of whimsical animals and florals and things like that. But they had a product that was just a note card, and it was basically a piece of paper that folded in two spots and kind of became like postcard size, and you could send it off. And I used those a lot to write to my grandparents. And this fold reminds me of that time. So I had to share it with you guys tonight because it made me feel good inside. So let me go ahead and I'm going to flip my camera around. Again, I apologize for the shaking and whatnot that occurs during this process. There's my lovely ceiling. Maybe someday I should hang a poster up there like they do at the dentist's office, so that when I flash the ceiling, you can see some kind of calm and relaxing scenery instead of just my white ceiling tiles. So the Around the Bend is a bundle, and it includes both stamps and dies. So here are the stamps. It's got this great corner leaf stamp and then a few different sentiments. I like this "You Are a Blessing" because it does follow the curve of a couple of the dies, and just kind of a dotted background and some little floral images and leaves. And then the dies, let's see, I think sometimes they don't show up very well. So let's flip over to page 76. And these are the dies. Hopefully you can see those. I'll try to hold them up a little bit closer. So it's a couple different border type dies, kind of a daisy, and again, little flowers, some hearts, some leaves. It's just a fun set of dies, but I've always been just a little bit challenged with border dies. And so I had to spend a little bit of time working with these so that I could be comfortable with them. And now I'm kind of feeling a panic too, because, you know, we're hitting the end of the not the end, but at the end of April, our catalog expires and a new one will be coming out. And I'm feeling this need to use products that I haven't used yet that I've got, and just making sure that I share with you guys everything that I've purchased from this catalog. So this is my Around the Bend video. All right, enough talking, Carol. Let's get going. Like I said, I struggled a little bit getting started with this. And so one of the things that I did is I just looked at the cards that they had set up for this set and just started duplicating those. Sometimes I have to do that to get the creativity flowing for me. So I did make my versions of these 3 cards right here. This one I pretty much copied right as it was from the catalog, using the mint macaron and kind of guessing at the sizes of some of these things. But essentially I duplicated what was here. And then I did change up colors a little bit to make this middle card, and obviously changed up my designer series paper. But it was a fun little card. These hearts, I kept losing them. They ended up on my elbows and all sorts of funny places. And then I made this card, and I just sort of picked the in colors because I haven't really used them a lot. It's a little 3x3 card. I actually used very vanilla, even though my daisies are basic white. Not sure why I did that, but I did. And used one of the stamps to create those curves. So that's kind of where I started with this. I want to just show you real quick. This is the stamp set, and these are the dies that go with it. But again, I really struggled visualizing how these things were going to look. So I took a little bit of time and stamped out all of the images for you. These stamp out really well. I used Tahitian Tide. Apparently I was on an in-color kick, but I really like how these images appear once you stamped them out. So I think this shows them up a little bit better. This is probably considered to be upside down because this actually coordinates with one of these dies. Actually, it isn't upside down, but one of the dies would die cut this, and you'd have one of those little dots in each of the scallops here. So that's kind of fun too, the way that piece works out. All right, and then the dies are where I really need to see things. So here are the dies that are included with this. You've got this fun curve that's got a little stitching on it and all these little dots. And if you're one that likes to make shaker cards, make sure you're saving all of these little dots because they're the perfect shaker piece. And then we've got this curved piece that has the leaves on it. This one, depending on where you place the die on your card, you can have it angled out. You can have it in the corner. You could make it a square. So you got to really play with this. I've even seen one where it goes this way on the card, and so the leaves sort of form a point, if that makes sense. I didn't get one of those made, but I can certainly show you. Actually, I started it. I just didn't get one made. So here's what I'm talking about, is you could have it go diagonally this way and kind of form a point coming out. When I made this card, I just cut off some of the leaves from here to make those leaves. So I got some playing to do. I did not use all the dies yet, but I'm working on it. And this is just a curved die. So I wanted to make sure you could see what that would look like. And then you've got these cute flowers, hearts, leaves. And what's nice about these, I'm hoping that you're going to be able to see it. There's embossing. Oh, great. Yes, you can if I hold it up close enough. There's a lot of detail on these leaves and the daisy. Just really subtle, but it adds so much to the look of the card, because it's just a little bit of a detail. So really fun dies. If you don't have this one yet, you might want to consider it because it will not be available after April 30th. So let me show you a couple other cards that I made. And this is actually the one that I am going to show you how to make today. And I tried this with several very different papers. And so just beware, it's going out of my comfort zone a little bit. This is using the Cottage Rose and Very Vanilla with Early Espresso. And I kind of wanted to soften up this flower, so I did actually use my Stays-On ink and colored it with my blends. That gave me an alcohol on alcohol as far as my colors go, so it automatically ran just a little bit, which is exactly what I was looking for. Here I had a little bit blurb out, and I decided I'm going to go ahead and keep it because I was doing that softer look anyhow. And then when you open this card up, I just stamped a couple of the leaves on the inside. And then I also used this with the, I always call this the wrong name. It is the Enjoy the Journey Designer Series paper. And I used the dies too to create that little tent and cut out the crescent moon. I debated even putting anything on the front of this because the paper kind of spoke for itself. But I wanted to bring in that tent, so I love this tent die set. And then last but not least, I used the Regency Park Designer Series paper. And that's that 6x6 pack. You've seen me use that quite a bit. And this is actually very similar to the card that triggered this layout. The layout itself was designed by a demonstrator by the name of Debbie Mageed. And then I saw it with my friend Linda Larson presenting this. And this is similar to a card that they both made. But I really liked, like I said, this layout with these flaps. Just brought back some childhood memories. And I used the daisies to add a little focal point on the front. Didn't even put any sentiment on these first three, or these two, and then just the quick happy birthday sentiment on this one. So let me show you how to make this card, and it will involve a little bit of die cutting, and that's okay. So we're going to have a piece of 5.5 by 8.5 cardstock scored at 4 1/4. One note I will tell you is I found it easier to use a white or the Very Vanilla as my base and for this portion of the flap, because then I could use my colored paper to create the pop through on those holes. So just a note, FYI kind of thing. And then you're going to need another piece of basic white cardstock. This one is 3.5 inches by 5.5 inches, and I scored it at 3/8 of an inch. I've seen some people say scored at 1/4 inch. I went with 3/8 of an inch because then I could use my tear tape and I didn't have to worry about it running over. And so I adjusted this part accordingly as well. And then you need a piece of colored cardstock that measures 2 3/4 by 5.5 inches. And a piece of Designer Series paper that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I wanted just a little bit of that white showing through. And this Designer Series paper is from the Hues of Happiness Designer Series paper packet. All right, and then you also are going to need some scraps, depending on how you're going to decorate the front of your card. I've got 3 white daisies. I cut out 3 different colored centers for the daisies, and then I'm using Granny Apple Green for my leaves on this one. So you just need those scraps to do whatever works best for your card layout. I did go ahead and stamp the You Are a Blessing on here before I did any die cutting, basically because I want to make sure that that Night of Navy ink was dried before I started doing anything. And then I am using my mini machine just because it is easier on the filming. oops, if I'm doing that. I don't want that to fall off because I've already got that placed. So I am going to go ahead. I like to kind of fold this down just a little bit because this is actually just a titch wider than what the mini machine always likes. So I'm going to make my sandwich using the number 1 plate, and then a number 2 plate I'm going to set so that it's down just a titch from the base of that white plate. And the reason for that is it makes it a little bit easier to slide things through. And then when I add this to my machine, I'm going to go ahead and fold that flap down. If the corner of the die happens to hit that, it isn't going to matter because that is not going to show. And then I'm going to complete my sandwich here. Whoops, I slid it up a little bit. I'm going to complete my sandwich here simply by adding that second number 2 plate to the top. And the reason I'm staggering it like that is it allows me then to get this through without a great deal of effort. And I am going to run this through one more time, only because of all those little doodaddy things that need to come out. All right, so what's going to happen here now is I'm going to pull off this part. And if you noticed, I'm just using some washi tape. This is some retired stuff to kind of hold these things down. What I found is that sometimes it was actually tearing this paper when I ran it through that second time. So I'm adhering it to the piece of the cardstock that I'm not going to keep anyhow. And that way it didn't matter if it tore or not. And I'm not throwing this out because, of course, there's tons of valuable real estate here that I could die cut other stuff from or use as a sentiment. So don't take me literally when I say I'm going to throw that out. So you can see I've got a lot of static. These white dots are just kind of flying right off my tray here. But that's why I was saying, if you like to make shaker cards, these are the perfect little doodads to put into a shaker card. They're going to shake very nicely, but it is dry here right now. And so I am actually getting a lot of static, making it bounce around. But you can see by running it through that second time, almost all of these pieces fell out. And there are some indents on this as well. You've got that stitching on the base of it here, and then kind of right up here, there's some indentations of the little circles. I don't know if you can see those on here, but this is just a really fun little die. You can kind of see where it is indented in that. So it's a fun little die. You will have to do a little bit of cleaning of the die, so just be aware of that. I'm going to set that aside. And when you lay that over white on white, that doesn't look too terribly exciting. There's not a lot of pop to that. And so what we are going to do is take, I'm using Melon Mambo, and I'm going to just line up this piece, if I flip it over, right at the score line, because eventually these two things are going to be lined up together. And all I need to know right now is where to place this second die. I want it to show through just a little bit. I've got to get the curves lined up and then kind of make sure my spacing is pretty even. And I think I'm okay with that. So again, I'm going to, oops, I just pushed it after all that work. I'm going to lay my washi tape on both ends. I do find that it helps to secure these dies because they will move a little bit. And since you do want the curve to line up pretty well, it's important to stick them down. So I'm going to recreate my sandwich. Again, offsetting it, forming that letter E just a little bit. These are long enough dies that you do want to make sure that both ends of the die are on the plates when you are running it through. Otherwise, you're going to risk bending your die. And we don't want that to happen. All right, let me crank this one through. This one only needs to go through once because it is strictly doing a cut. So I can move that mini machine out of the way. And you can use either the large or the mini machine for these cuts. When I'm going live like this, I like to use that mini machine because it fits better for filming, but either one is going to work. I'm just going to pull this die off and stick it on a magnet so I don't lose it. All right, and so now I've got this beautiful curved piece, and because we work to get it lined up, it follows that curve real nicely. And if I was feeling super ambitious, I could put that one stamp on and get the dots in here. That one is actually easier if you do that before you cut it and then line your die cut up with that, for me anyhow. I am now going to come in and use my liquid glue, and I'm just leaving little dots anywhere I've got solid white, especially getting these corners here because they will pop up just a little bit. And I'm just putting in little dots because I don't want it gushing over. But I'm trying to make sure that I get them spread out down by the border too, because I want that adhered to the cardstock as well. Making sure I don't put my finger in it. And then for the rest of this, I'm just gonna scribble in some glue. I'll be putting tear and tape on that part, so you don't need to worry about that. But I like to wait until I have this attached before I do that. And so then the next thing you need to do is put this attached. For me, it works best if I do it this direction. Just make sure before you start attaching it that the curves are lined up the right way. It would work if you had the larger sizes opposite, but I think you get a better look when they are the same. And once I have it lined up, I can just come through and rub it in, get it burnished nice along those edges. And that's another area where it's nice to use the liquid glue, because if you need to move it around a little bit, you've got that ability to do that. So that takes care of our little flap. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and create our card. Now typically when we make cards, we're going to fold it and either use, I got ink on there, you'll see where that came from in just a second. Actually came from when I did my piece on the back here. And when you look at that, you say, well, Carol, you stamped it upside down. And I did not. This card goes together in a real interesting manner. Instead of opening this way or this way, it is actually going to open this way, and we'll have our flap attached to that card. And so this actually ends up being the back side and on the bottom. Now, one thing that I noticed is I've got just a little bit extra hanging over. Normally that does not matter, but because I want this card flap to lay flat, I'm going to take off that little bit of extra so that I am sure it's going to fold flat when we are all done here. So now we're going to decorate the front of our card, which is this side. And I'm just going to take this piece of DSP, whoops, designer series paper. Sometimes you may hear demonstrators refer to it as DSP. I try not to do that. So designer series paper. And I am just going to center this on my card front. It's just going to have a small narrow margin on all sides. And that is the front of my card for right now. I will be adhering my daisies. And if you notice here, I've just got a Post-it note so I could stick all these little pieces on here. That way, as I was moving stuff around, you didn't have to hear me go, wait, where's this? Where's this? Hi, Lynn. Hi, Lori. Thank you so much for joining in. So I just have attached these little pieces to the Post-it note, the sticky part on there. All right, let's go ahead and take this piece and some of our tear and tape. And I'm not even putting a full strip across. I'm just adding a couple little pieces here. And I find it's easier sometimes to get the backing off if I come over with the bone folder. Oh, the dog just came downstairs, so you may hear him snorting through my stuff, trying to get me to throw his ball for him. Ouch. I was cutting up some fruit and I managed to shove a piece under my fingernail and I just hit that spot again. All right, so then to attach this piece, again, I want to make sure I've got the right side of my card and I've got it going the right direction, which now that I'm talking here, it's going to go like this. And so now I'm going to just set this centered on this piece and right up to the score line and burnish it. So we are going to have this little exposed strip in the back. Don't worry about it. Who looks at the back of the card, right? And that's how we get this fun fold. Now you may find once you've done that that it helps to go back through and especially on this piece, just run across it with your bone folder. So now I've got this cute card with the "You Are a Blessing," these pieces here, and I want to decorate the inside a little bit. I told you we have this fun corner stamp with the leaves, and I am going to add the "Just Wanted to Say Thanks." Now I am going to just run this. I got to figure out where it's going to fit best. I'm actually just going, I don't want to do it right up. I should have done this before I assembled it. So that's what I'm trying to figure out, because now I'm going to have that line there. So I'm going to stamp down just a little bit in that corner, and I'm going to go ahead and use the Granny Apple Green for the leaves. And I'm just going to ink it up and carefully put it here in the corner. So that adds just a kind of fun little touch. You could even put a piece down here if you want to do that to kind of balance that out. I hope I didn't just tap the edge on here. If I did, we're going to live with it. All right, there's that. Let me get my ink closed up so I don't misplace it. And then I'm just going to put this "Just Wanted to Say Thanks." And I think I'm going to angle it, actually. No, I'm going to stick it out that way. And I'm going to use my Melon Mambo there. And that still leaves me a lot of room to write a note to the recipient on this. But it adds a little decoration to the inside of the card as well. All right, so that takes care of that part. While that ink is drying, let's come back over here and start putting our daisies together. I am just going to use, again, a little drop of, I'm slowly becoming a convert to the liquid glue. And I never thought that would happen. little bit of a dot in each. When I first started assembling these, I was actually putting it on the back of these little pieces, and then I got it all over my fingers and everything else. So I am just recommending putting it on the middle of the flower, because then, you know, you don't run into problems. It's live. All right. And I am using Mango Melody, Pool Party, and Daffodil Delight for the centers of the flowers. I was trying to pick up some of the colors that were in the front of the card. And then I stuck my finger on that one. This is why sometimes I struggle with liquid glue, because I do tend to get it all over everything, but you know, it really does stick quite well. And then you can save that Post-it note and use it again later. It helps when you're in a humid environment, because our adhesives sometimes won't stick when it's humid outside. So that is just another reason why I do that. All right, so I've got these pieces put together. This should be dry. We can fold our card up, and then it's just a matter of attaching our daisies. Now, I kind of think this card has a little bit of bulk to it already, but honestly, these daisies needed to pop, in my opinion. So you might, depending on how thick yours ends up being, you might end up paying a little extra in postage to ship this one. But I think it might be okay. Let me do my sliding test thing. I think if you put a postcard in it, it's going to be okay. You know, put a postcard in front of it just to protect the bulge, or a piece of cardstock, whatever works for you. Just to kind of give it a smooth pass through when it's going through the postage machines. But it isn't too thick when I add my 3 daisies. So I'm just going to kind of randomly put these on here. I don't really care if part of it ends up underneath there when it's closed. And we'll put our last one there. And then I've got these 3 leaves. I just love that detail. These are really fun dies. And I'm working with a small space here. So let me grab just a little bit of glue, and I'm just going to put it in the center of the leaf. I'm not going to adhere the whole thing down. Not sure that I need to do that. All right, and then I'm just going to pop a leaf section under each of the daisies. It adds a little color and makes them stand out just a titch from the background paper. You just want to make sure that wherever you put it, the leaves aren't hanging over your card, otherwise they're going to get bent. Whoops, that one got there. And so there you go. And of course, you know what this card needs? Needs just a little bit of my friend Stella. I think we need to just put a little bit on the center. It adds a little bit more pop. Okay, so this card is using just a little bit more cardstock than a normal card. I'm going to get a quick weight on it. With an envelope, and hopefully I've got a postcard handy. This card is still coming in at less than an ounce, and so I think if you put a piece of cardstock, or you know, I've got some of these that I put on the front of my cards, and that way when it goes through the postage, it's a smooth thing. You don't get the bumps from the daisies there, and I don't think you're gonna have any problems using regular postage on it. Don't quote me, but I think it'll be okay. So quick recap. These were called Just a Note cards in the current catalog, and it was just a 3-fold kind of thing where you could write your note. And so these are the cards that I made to showcase that technique. I think it's good with an all-over floral, but if you have a scene, I think it's also kind of cool that way. Like I said, I could have left that tent off and just had these pine trees in the mountains there, but I wanted to use the tent. Totally up to you. And then as a quick rehash of some other things you can do with this stamp and die set, you've got this lovely card. I really like this card. It's just sweet. I don't have a good way to describe it, but I just think it comes off being very sweet, and who wouldn't love getting something like that in the mail? Just, I'm happy for you. Good job. And then a little 3x3 card as well. And you could certainly do this on a bigger card. I was just trying to kind of mimic what was in the catalog to get my juices flowing on that. So I hope you enjoyed these cards, that you're inspired to look at this Around the Bend stamp set and die set. It is not as hard to use as it looks. I sort of let it intimidate me. And like I said, you can get the bonuses then of having dots for shaker cards down the road. Just a lot of fun and a lot of versatility in coming up with different cards. And especially with this die, think about how you cut it. You know, here it's shorter than this piece. This is kind of the length of the die. You can cut it as a square and get just a little bit of it. But I think this die in particular has a lot of versatility. You just need to play with that one a little bit. So I hope you, like I said, are inspired with this and give it a shot. If you do, please post your cards in the comments down below. I'd love to see what other people create. And I will see you guys all next week. Have a great week. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.